Welcome back, listeners. Thank you for joining us for another podcast episode. On today's episode, we'll be looking at the black box problem. Now, what is the black box problem? Well, it is a concept where information is stored in large databases and is processed by a computer. This problem occurs as a person asks it a question, yet doesn't know how the computer reaches its ultimate conclusion due to the large amount of data that is stored within the database. In this episode, we'll look at AI in terms of education with Professor Duffy. We'll look at it within the medical field with Andrew Palmer. We'll look at it in the military field with Mr. Bobby Caridi, as well as his son, Robert Caridi. And we'll also look at AI within the entertainment field through our discussions with Tyler Simpson. However, the last segment of this podcast will not be an interview with a special guest, but rather my own insights within AI within the field of law. With that, I want to say thank you for everyone who's tuning in, and let's jump into this podcast. I'm here with Professor Duffy and his dog Clover, who decided to sit in on our discussion today. Professor Chad Duffy currently serves at Pepperdine University. He currently is an assistant professor of English and serves within the Humanities and Teaching Education Division. He's also the director of SAGE, the Social Action and Justice Program within the Seaver College. Today's topic is going to be AI in terms of education. So first off, I want to ask what your thoughts are on humanizers. Humanizers are, quote, an AI tool that is specifically meant to introduce a human touch to an AI-generated text. In developing advanced algorithms and linguistic models, the voice and tone can be made palpable for human readers, close quote. Ironically, this source comes from manuscripts.ai.
Oh, nice.
So I guess, what are your thoughts on humanizers in terms of AI research?
Yeah, so I guess I have a couple of thoughts, and thank you so much for having me
today,
and also for having Clover, with her thoughts on AI in the background there. No. Humanizers, I think it's such an interesting concept because, and I'm not super familiar, I guess I would say, with the like some of the research that's being done with the creation of humanizers, but the concept of making technology more of a companion, I guess, or more recognizable as human, or that human touch, as you said, Ben. I thought that was really fascinating to me because it just makes me think of so these concepts of like post-humanism or transhumanism, right? Like decades ago, right? Like scholars thinking of things like object-oriented ontology and the singularity, like the moment when technology will rise up and be smarter than humans, and that's the moment, right, where there's like this flip in like the global hierarchy, and I think a lot of that like is the stuff of science fiction, right? But it's kind of exciting to be at a point in time right now where a lot of those things that are science fiction are becoming part of our just lived reality. So I think that, okay, maybe I'm a little biased, but I feel like where we're at right now with technology is the best that, we can try to do is try to get the tech to trick you into thinking that it's a person. And so this is a concept, right, within post-humanism too, where there's this idea of the Turing test, where if you are sitting at a computer, like a terminal, and you're having a conversation with an algorithm or a machine, but you think that it's a human, that is the moment where, according to this test, that the machine has achieved some form of artificial intelligence. I don't know if we're at that point now, but that might mainly be because a lot of the language models and things that I'm familiar with, they're not trying to trick you. They're not trying to deceive you into thinking that it's a person or that it's a human. We know that it's still a machine. But over the coming years, I think it'll continue to get better and better at not necessarily tricking us, but making it feel more like it's a companion or a friend or something that we can put our emotion into and share our feelings, and then that becomes part of the algorithm and part of the data that it will like spit something else out. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, it just feels, I don't know if this really answers your question,
Right.
but in terms of like right now, it doesn't feel like, for whatever reason, maybe there's still a lot of hesitancy around, like being friends with the machine. I don't know if a lot of the work is created, to emphasize that. Okay, Glover, thank you.
Well, that was actually a perfect segue into my next point. Human generators such as Stealth, ChatGPT, Phrasely AI, Humanizer AI, and Undetectable AI are all sources of humanization tech tools that were developed in 2008, but more evolved in 2014 with the rise of ChatGPT and other sources like Barge AI. These sources were the subsidiaries of the parent companies of AI sources like ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is currently using Stealth ChatGPT to try to humanize some of its responses. In terms of, I guess, you mentioned AI trying to trick people, and if you remember earlier of 2024, we had that whole scandal with Amazon using its walk-in stores with the AI.
I don't know if I remember this.
So for the listeners that don't have this recollection, at the start of 2024, a new term was coined called facsimization. Facsimization is, quote, facsimization of the field occurs when an event where a person is misled to believe that an object that they are interacting with is artificial intelligence, when in reality, it's still a human response. In terms of this Amazon walkout store, many were led to believe that this store was completely run off of AI generation. However, when you went into the store and you bought something, instead of AI tracking your purchases, it was a company in India that Amazon had hired out to monitor customers and create shopping carts and checkout lists of what the person bought.
That's interesting. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's super fascinating. Some kind of that tricky model. That's interesting. Yeah.
And then I guess a more relevant topic to your field as a professor here at Pepperdine. What do you think the percentage of college students using AI is?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think that it is very, very high. I don't know if I want to put a number on it. I think, okay, I'll say something maybe potentially kind of controversial, because we're in a moment, right? Like, I'm a writing professor, and there have been, centuries of research focused on literacy crises, right? So, I mean, going back like 50 years, like in the 70s, right? Like there's all of these articles that are coming about how like students can't write anymore, and right, like over and over again, like the launch of Google, or even the invention of writing, right? We talked about this in class, right? Like Socrates hated the invention of writing because he thought it was going to destroy our memories, and we weren't going to have to memorize speeches anymore. Like that's the worst thing in the world, right? So, I mean, I kind of like try to take the social perception of AI as a negative right now with a grain of salt. And so I think that we'll probably never know, like, really, how many students are using AI, because there is so much negativity around it and so much shame, I think, around using AI. And I mean, even, right, like I have colleagues who teach, in English and are very against AI, and that's their prerogative, right? Every professor has a duty, I would say, to articulate to their students what is appropriate in the class in order to achieve the learning outcomes of the class. And if that doesn't include AI, that is completely acceptable, but I don't think we should throw it out completely, because I do believe if not every student, almost every student, I would assume, has probably used AI in some way, shape, or form at some time for something. Maybe not always like school assignments, but I think like I probably would be if I was a student today. Yeah. So sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Clover has a lot to say. She wants to use the AI. But mainly I think for me it's more of a curiosity, right? Like what can it do? Play around with it. And I'm not, okay, this isn't really what you asked, but I would say too, I'm not really convinced by the negatives that people have been sharing. And I'm noticing right now in our current moment, there's some research coming out about the positives of using AI as a professor, but we're not seeing the same kind of research come out about students using AI. So there's a bias, and I think that there's a lot of work clearly to be done about thinking how to use AI productively and, yeah, ethically. So,
Well, in a study conducted by Digital Education Council, this kind of responds and answers your concerns in a sense. Out of 3,839 responses across 16 countries, from students ranging from bachelor's, master's, and doctoral students in multiple fields, to offer a diverse range of student viewpoints on AI education, we learned that 86% of students claim to have used artificial intelligence within their studies, with 24% reporting that they used AI daily, 54% that used it on a weekly basis, and another 54% on a bi-weekly basis.
nice. Yeah.
In terms of why there's not that much research in the student side of AI education, within the study they also learned that 48% of the students interviewed felt an inadequacy prepared in terms of using AI within the workforce. Close quote.
Yeah.
And that once again comes from Digital Education Council, which did this study over the terms of a 2-year time span.
Nice. My goodness. Yeah. It's been out for years already. That's unbelievable. Yeah.
So I guess my question to you is, with this concern of AI not being taught in schools properly, should AI literacy be taught as a mandatory course?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm perhaps an outlier in that I would say absolutely. And I think, to qualify that a little bit, I think that we're in an exciting space, maybe a frustrating space as a student, probably a frustrating space as a student. But for me, as a professor, it just seems like we get to play with AI right now. See what's possible, see what it's good at, see what it's not good at. And I know that there are, like, naysayers who would, it's so interesting, Ben, like the kinds of conversations I see happening around AI. So, just the groups that I'm a part of, I'm an old, so I'm on Facebook, right? And that seems to be a place where a lot of academics are still present. And there's a lot of attention to the natural resources that are used in continuing large language models, especially water and all of these things. But then I'll also see people post things like, oh, I just asked AI to develop a picture of my office based on what it thinks it knows about me. So there's this interesting moment, I think, right now where it's very easy, virtue signaling, right? As a term is oh, I'm better than you because I don't use AI. I think that is a problem, and also isn't necessarily really true. And I think that we're going to get to a place where everyone will be using the language models that we demonize right now, just like everyone uses Google, just like everyone uses writing, right? I think that is a losing battle. The faculty, the researchers who are against, the use of it, I think that the time has come, right? That has passed, as you've clearly shared with the research that you've done as well too. So for me, it seems I would love to say we could get to the place where within the next year we would be able to be teaching students all of the quote-unquote right ways of using AI, but I just don't think that knowledge is there yet. Students are going to have to collaborate with researchers. Students are going to have to become the researchers to actually share that knowledge of their experience. Perhaps in large part too because I think students are freer to be able to explore these resources without preconceived notions of them being antithetical to whatever work they're doing. So I would just say continue experimenting, continue playing, do so in an ethical way in spaces where you're safe, where you have faculty who are open to the exploration of AI. Find those faculty who are open to that and who will let you experiment, who will let you fail, but not in a way where it feels like it's punitive. I think that is probably the best case scenario right now, because we don't have a lot of that knowledge. That knowledge is to be determined and will happen over the course of probably the next decade or so.
To add a little bit more background, I misspoke. It's 58% of students report not having any sufficient knowledge. It was 48% that felt inadequate to use it in their workplace.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And then finally, I want to wrap up on your specialty, which is teaching about disabilities. How do you think AI will help in terms of disability research?
Oh yeah, I think it'll help and contribute a lot. I mean, not necessarily something that is explicitly tied to disability, but in terms of access, I think AI is going to just completely revolutionize the way that we think about access and accessibility. One thing that I'm seeing come out a lot is AI's translation capabilities. I think because the way that it composes is a lot more natural in its speaking. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a linguist. I don't speak multiple different languages. I have some fluency in a couple other languages besides English, but not, I'm not a translator or anything. But I have seen people say that, especially for languages where populations are dwindling out, where there's not many people who speak, some of these more remote or ancient languages, AI can be a source where that is preserved and where translation can happen and access can be created across multiple languages in ways that we've never seen before, that you would normally need to have, right, like very specialized degrees in knowledge and, if not natural fluency in a language, to be able to do the kinds of translation work that AI can now do, just with like hit of return or enter or whatever. Not to say that it's always going to be accurate, but it's a place to start. And I think that is also, in general, how AI is going to revolutionize medicine and disability. I just saw there was an announcement of our university's very first Rhodes Scholar, so full ride scholarship for graduate study at Oxford University. He's a computer scientist who's interested in AI models and medical field. So I think that, there's a lot to be seen that will happen in the future, but I think that there will be a lot of good that will come from being able to automize is that the word? Yeah, make automatic a lot of the things that are just slow and difficult and require a lot of expertise and training. It's just giving this tool, freely to the world to be able to use. I think, a lot of good will come from that. I'm sure a lot of bad, will come from that as well, but I try to focus on positives, so yeah.
Definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
And you offer a perfect segue into our next segment, which is AI within the healthcare field.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Professor Duffy and Clover for being here and responding to all of my questions today.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. Thank you so much. And Clover says thank you too. I'm glad she finally settled. Keep you settled in there, baby. Yeah.
Now that we've talked with Professor Duffy, I've also invited one of my personal friends, Andrew Palmer. Andrew Palmer is currently a Pepperdine undergraduate student.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew. I'm a freshman. I'm friends with Ben over here. I originally intended to major in sports medicine, but I have shifted to religion as the semester has gone on.
Now, I want to mainly talk to you about the medical side. However, your religious background will also play an important role. So I want to talk to you about AI within the medical field. Do you think AI has a place within the medical realm?
There's definitely a place for AI in the medical field, I'd say. The accuracy of AI, there's a lot of bugs and things to, get figured out, but the accuracy that can come with AI is a lot higher with taking human error into account. So being able to minimize errors with AI would be of great use for us.
Well, I know I haven't given you the report at least, but I read a report from Elsevier Research. Elsevier Research mainly specialized within AI of the medical field. Within their research, they learned that 58%, once again, that's 58% of AI tends to be more accurate than human examiners within specific tasks. Majority of these tasks were simple things such as identifying pain within patients and identifying different patients' emotions. Now, within the medical field, the article also states that there has to be some level of interpersonal relationship between the clinician and the patient. Now, do you think AI would destroy that relationship between patient and doctor?
Yeah, I definitely do think that would cause some issues. I don't know if destroy is the word that I would use. It's definitely more difficult to get that connection if the doctor isn't present. I'm not sure on the circumstances per se based off of that research. But if the doctor isn't present, you're not getting that face-to-face contact. If you're not in the same room and you're talking and you're trying to solve the problem at hand, then that can be a real cause for concern and sort of take out the personal aspect that makes sort of everything, it makes the magic happen.
Right.
I don't know really how else to put it, but
yeah. Now I want to specifically talk in regards to AI conducting procedures. Do you think that there is a place for AI to conduct medical procedures?
I think that in the future, with a lot of progress with AI, I think that it would definitely be helpful. Because, doctors work long hours, they can make mistakes. There have been lots of cases where a doctor has made a mistake or they're a little shaky, and then that can wreck someone's life. So I think AI, after everything's been vetted pretty clearly, and by pretty clearly I mean incredibly clearly, so that it's very precise, I would say that there's definitely room for surgery.
Right. Now, in terms of surgery and then patient doctor confidentiality and the general relationship within the Elsiffer's research, they discuss the process of obtaining consent. So I want to specifically talk about AI within consent for medical procedures. Obviously, you know that for any type of medical procedure, the doctor has to receive a consent form from the patient before they can begin operations, correct?
Yes, of course.
And in order for the patient to feel informed about this operation, the doctor usually comes in to disclose certain facts in regards to what will happen. Now, do you think AI should be allowed to give these background information to the patient?
Not in its current state, no. I've actually had a little bit of experience with this, not giving out information, but receiving information from doctors, and they get all of their information from a database that the hospital gives them, or whatever care facility they're at gives them, and that's what they base everything off of. And I've gotten chapters from that book is really what it is. So I think that you could theoretically program the AI to go through that and then pick out those sections and give that to you and find out, be well informed that way.
Right. Would you have any concerns that, considering most people don't know medical terms, that it could provide a barrier for clear communication?
That is definitely a possibility. Most people do not know really any medical terms at all. So if you're lacking, if you've got to look up a bunch of different definitions, it's going to be really tough to understand exactly what's going on. With the case that I was mentioning before, I had a lot of questions and I had to ask my doctor, and he said, well, they're saying this over 2 paragraphs, but really it just means it's worth about 1 sentence. So I'd say that having a doctor there to explain things and put it in levels that you can understand, realizing who you are, how you talk, being able to take in that information, and then transfer that knowledge into something that you can understand is really, really valuable. And AI, I'm not sure if it'll ever really get to that point, So having a doctor there that would be able to do that is incredibly important, I'd say.
I want to specifically focus in on Elsiffer's research's main point, which is whether or not AI should be allowed to make ultimate choices within the medical field. So this would be, let's say a patient is in a life or death situation. The doctor believes that there's no hope for the patient, while the AI believes that a highly invasive surgery could save the person's life. Do you think AI should be left to make that decision, or do you think it's the doctor's responsibility?
I think, the ultimate decision falls upon the patient, of course, and what they want to do. I think having that choice open to them would be interesting to see how that would go in the future. But based off of my experience with doctors and with AI does not know what it's doing half the time, to put it bluntly. So neither do doctors, but that's where you find a good one.
Right.
And it's harder to find a good AI. It doesn't really exist yet, especially with the medical field. So I'd say putting the trust in the doctors is definitely a safer bet. They've seen different cases, because not every case is the same. Not every case is textbook, and AI can't really account for that.
Right.
So having a doctor that would be able to adjust on the fly to that is very, very vital.
Right. Now, in terms of, I guess, AI creating things that aren't quite plausible or false positives, how often would you think medical AI would use false positives as casebook examples?
I wouldn't think it would happen as much as it definitely would happen, actually. I hadn't really thought about that until you mentioned it, but false positives happen all the time, and trying to stay on the safe side of things, AI is always sort of weird with that type of thing. So I think false positives would occur pretty often, and that could cause a lot of stress, a lot of concern, which can have really negative effects on your health that weren't there to begin with, and that could, be detrimental to your future.
Right.
So the potential of false positives and, AI not really, with doctors, they can preface like, okay, there's the possibility of this, we're going to run some more tests. But if AI just gives out, this is what you have as a false positive, that, that can be life altering in a way that it doesn't need to be. So
I definitely agree with you. Yeah. Now, as we're going to wrap up this segment, I just want to ask you, if you had to summarize what we've discussed so far, how would you do that?
I'd say that AI is more accurate than doctors in regards to surgical technique, and less accurate in thinking on the fly and understanding what needs to be done in a given situation, especially on a personal level, because I don't really know anyone that necessarily trusts AI for everything. So it becomes a matter of having AI as an option for healthcare, and I believe that patients should have that choice later on once things are more solidified. So I'd say that really it's about not putting everything in the hands of AI, but giving it some control, because it can have positive effects.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Andrew, for being here today.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. For the next segment, we're going to be analyzing AI within the military field. Today, I'm joined with Mr. Caridi. I'll let him introduce himself.
How you doing? My name's Bob Caridi, former Marine, 1984 to 1988.
And I'm also joined with his son, Robert Caridi. Bobby, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bobby Caridi. I'm an Air Force ROTC cadet at the University of Missouri.
Now, today's question is going to be, do you think AI has a place within our military? So I guess I'll open it up to Mr. Caridi.
So going back to old time, technology. Everything was done man, but technology is advanced, and I do believe if technology, AI technology, is programmed with good intentions, everything could work. If the programmers have an agenda, which we already know that's kind of the case with, general AI, if they have an agenda, they can program it in that direction. But if we have military experts who actually understand concepts and ways and means to administer force, then I think it would be a good thing.
And then I guess more to the point that you're a Marine, do you think that in terms of ground troops, do you think the use of AI with Marines would be feasible, or do you think it should be left to drones and more in particular the Air Force?
Ground troops, from my old experience, we're talking 40 years, left to individuals and experienced leaders, you leave that training to the individuals, not to computers and stuff like that. You have actual human beings who have experienced certain things. And based on those experiences, that's how they train, from successes to failures. That's how you build a training regimen. And that's how I was trained in the mid-'80s.
Now, I'm just going to pull an excerpt that I have off the top of my head from the 2023 DoD report on AI technology. In it, it suggests that in order for AI to be successfully implemented into the military, there needs to be a trust between the military and, each individual user. Do you think that it would be reasonable to have every single soldier within the Army learn something about AI in order to implement AI warfare?
Well, you actually have to learn this at a ground level. Every rifleman has to learn how to shoot a rifle,
Right.
zero his rifle. So if you're going to add AI, this massive database information, you actually have to learn how to use it. An iPhone, in the beginning, nobody knew how to use it, but you have to start using it, adding apps and starting stuff like that. But you have to be taught. You have to be trained. You can't just assume people can adapt to, modern technologies. You have to learn it. And somebody has to be able to teach it.
Do you think that there could be a trust between, individual soldiers and, AI weaponry? Because that was also asserted in the document. You mentioned soldiers zeroing their weapons, and I assume, at least from what I know from movies, they tell you to trust your gun with your life. Do you think that that kind of trust can be developed with AI?
If the whole development of the technology is based on trust, you just can't give somebody your life and trust them if you don't know that they have the best intentions. So you have to have the right people programming everything that gives a soldier or a Marine or an airman or a sailor the trust in these weaponry and technology.
So you'd say it'd be more about it'd be more important to have correct programmers.
Absolutely. You have to have people with the right morals and the right, ideals, not warmongers or people who just don't care about people. You just have to have somebody who cares about everything.
And then I guess that brings up the question, how would you decide whose morals? Because even with AI and computer programming, there's always that unintended bias.
Well, basic morals. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. Defense, right? Everybody has the right to defend themselves. As a Catholic Christian, I say I follow God's commandments. Thou shalt not kill. But if I have to kill somebody who is attacking my family or my country, it's defense. The actual interpretation of thou shalt not kill is thou shalt not murder. If you go into Jewish translation, I don't choose to murder is a choice. Killing somebody is a reaction to whatever might have happened to you or to a country. And people in the level of power and the authority to wage war present war to Congress in America. You have to be clear that you're not going to murder people. You're going to defend people from being murdered. And that's the moral difference.
So I'm going to shift it to Bobby here. Let's see if he was paying attention. What were your thoughts on AI in terms of, I guess, aviations?
So we do learn a lot about AI in ROTC as it's a developing field, and in the Department of the Air Force, which is Air Force and Space Force, there are a lot of cyber and intel careers. So it is a big part developing the Department of the Air Force. So I would say it is good that it is being implemented, because I know our adversaries in other countries are going to be doing the same. So we need to be up at their level and even better. But when it comes to pulling the trigger, especially with drones, drone warfare is becoming increasingly popular. I'd say that AI is a good tool to be an aid to get information or advice. It could be a good aid, but a person should be the one making critical decisions, and we shouldn't be trusting the computer for everything.
Now, in terms of, I guess what your dad said earlier about self-defense, I know AI is, or at least the DoD claims that AI is beneficial due to the fact it can make micro decisions in seconds. Do you think that AI has a place in, I guess, planes having countermeasures being automatically deployed because of AI responses?
Yeah, I would say AI deploying countermeasures is beneficial with aircraft. It could help the pilot make decisions faster. You know, sometimes a delay of half a second of pressing a button could mean life or death. But again, when it's a critical decision like ejecting from a plane or pulling the trigger, I think everything that involves like using your conscience should not involve AI.
And then, do you think AI needs to be taught to everyone in the field, or only those specifically going to be using AI within the course of their work?
It should definitely be taught to everyone in the field, because you interact with people of all sorts of jobs in the military. Just because you're a public affairs person doesn't mean you aren't going to interact with like pilots or cyber or intel. So it's an interconnected web when you're in the military. You're going to work with people in all sorts of fields, all different jobs. So having a understanding of the AI would be beneficial for every person in the military, because you don't know what kind of technology you're going to be working with or who you're going to be talking to.
Now, I guess as we're going to wrap up this interview, if you wanted to, I guess, condense everything we just talked about in a few sentences, how would you phrase it? What do you think the main takeaways of our conversation were?
Developing AI in the U.S. military is beneficial and should be taught to everyone in the military in order to keep up and be better than our adversaries. However, although AI is a useful aid, it should not be the ultimate deciding factor, and everything that involves ethical decision-making should be left up to a human.
Perfect. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to you and your dad for agreeing to do this podcast with me, and thank you for your service.
Hoorah!
For our next segment, I'm joined with guest star Tyler Wayne Simpson. Tyler, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me on this beautiful podcast. My name is Tyler Wayne Simpson. I'm an up-and-coming artist, technically, in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm in a band. We're called Force the Beast. We are Las Vegas's best metal band at the moment. We make heavy metal music. Sometimes I produce my own music.
Now, I want to start off today's conversation by discussing the song Heart on My Sleeve. This was a digitally created song by AI, but it utilized the voices of Drake and The Weeknd. Have you heard of this song?
Yes, I'm 100% familiar with this song.
Do you think AI has a place in the music industry?
Well, at the moment, thankfully, no. Because everything AI generated is labeled as AI generated. But in the future, I definitely could see it. We have Studio Ghibli. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No, please tell us more.
All right, it's basically anime, right? Basically anime movies. They're going to start using AI to produce images. And AI is definitely going to be in the cartoon world. So I could definitely see it becoming music. And eventually movies themselves. And do I want it to be? No, not at all. I think all these forms of media should be art, and come from the human soul,
Right.
come from human experience. AI doesn't have human experience. It's created by humans. It's basically just a bunch of numbers and letters, formulas. Yeah,
Right.
that shouldn't be, but it is most likely going to be part of our media we consume.
Now, circling back onto, I guess, AI deepfakes within music industry, particularly the song Heart on My Sleeve, would it surprise you that 1.7 million viewers listened to this particular music video and didn't realize it was AI generated?
That would surprise me, just because AI isn't at the point where it isn't. When you listen to an AI song, you can still hear some like little slurring inside of the sound waves. You can just hear it a little bit. Me personally, just listening to a lot of AI media that's labeled as AI media, I can mostly tell. So if all these 1.7 million people didn't know it was AI, that's pretty surprising, and it's probably developing way faster than we expected.
Now, would it shock you if I told you, according to NPR.org, that the music video wasn't taken down or even flagged as AI
It was a whole
deepfakes?
video?
Yes, it was a 6-minute video. It was not flagged or taken down until the music record itself, who owns the copyrighted titles for both Drake and The Weeknd, noticed the video and decided to take it down due to the loss of revenue.
That is 100% surprising, because I thought this was just a song. You showed me the song earlier.
Right.
Yeah, but the fact that it was a whole video,
Yes.
and no one knew it was AI,
Right.
that is scary.
The 1.7 million viewers come from YouTube alone. However, according to NPR, the statistics indicate that it could have been up to 4.6 million viewers who listened to this song before it was even flagged or ultimately removed. Now, I guess on the lines of creating music videos, do you think artists should incorporate AIs within their own particular music videos?
Well, leave that up to the artist, but whenever I watch so many artists have been doing this. I believe Linkin Park did it. I'm not too sure, but every once in a while you get that Instagram ad of like some local artist trying to promote their music, and there's an AI video. And personally, it's kind of corny.
Right.
It's a little corny. It's like it feels lazy,
Right.
It's not actual artwork. So yeah, the using AI definitely it's definitely being used, but is that really looked up upon? No, because anyone could do it. It's not.
Right.
Yeah, it's not artistic. It's
Right.
boring. Yeah.
Now, I guess I kind of want to step away from your expertise in music, and I'm going to step into the world of digital technology, particularly in movies and TV shows. Now, you mentioned earlier that AI was being used in some TV shows. Now, deepfake technology has also been used to recreate videos of singers within the context of movies. Do you think that this is a problem?
Oh no, definitely. This is a problem. Not only just by labeling someone's art as theirs when it's really not, but legally too. You could have horrible accusations made against you through an AI video. And I think that AI is developing way faster than AI detection, and that is what's really scary. That's pretty bad.
Now, would it surprise you that movies are actually using AI deepfakes to resurrect deceased actors?
Oh, Star Wars did that, right?
Yeah, they use CGI imaging to bring back the late Carrie Fisher. Now, I want to give a statistic to you, Tyler.
All right.
This comes from an NPR, and they estimate that roughly 65% of singers are targets for deepfake pornography. Does this surprise you?
65% viewers are targets
Of singers.
of singers. So
Are targets.
65% of singers have had deepfakes against them.
Correct. Most
Okay.
notably known is the Taylor Swift deepfakes.
I really thought it would have been more than 65%, so I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, just because most people we look up to are highly sexualized. Let's say that they're highly looked up upon in a way that's almost beyond human. So,
Right.
yeah, the fact that it's only 65% is surprising to me. It should be all of them.
Right. Now, according to an article conducted by the Sage Research Institute, particularly in the one quoted, "Should technology be more regulated?" Would it surprise you that a majority of those being targeted for AI deepfakes are in fact those within the music industry?
That would not surprise me at all. No, not at all. We, as musicians, most musicians you look up to are all their fan base is attracted to them. Let's take a look at like K-pop, right? You got BTS. Like, you could listen to better music elsewhere, but the reason why the fans like them is because, you know, they look pretty. Yeah.
Right. Now, in terms of the research that SQR research brought forth was mainly an article about deepfake technology. And I'll be going a little bit further into this during the law segment of this podcast. But for the purposes of this, I'll be referencing our First Amendment rights, and particularly the fact that we don't have any rights protecting us from deepfake technology. As a musician and an artist, does this concern you that someone could create a deepfake of you using AI and not be punished?
Yeah, it does concern me, but I think the laws are going to shift towards the laws of defamation. I think defamation laws are definitely going to have to, adapt the same way AI is adapting, right? So I think we are still going to be protected. I mean, it's going to be so popular, everyone's going to be doing it. There's going to be so many cases against so many individuals. So I think there definitely has to be something. But in the meantime, it is pretty scary now that we don't have much protection against that.
Now, would it shock you further if I mentioned that the Supreme Court has actually made a ruling in Campbell versus a cuffed rose? They ruled that, according to our First Amendment right, that people who use generative AI are free from any punishments due to the fact that the AI themselves, using deepfake technology, created a unique image coming from their own mind. In other words, they created the image, therefore they own the property rights to that image.
Yeah, no, the Supreme Court, wow, that's actually really surprising. It's obvious that the law isn't adapting as fast as AI is, and that's pretty scary.
If you had to summarize our conversations in a few sentences, what would it be?
AI is developing fast. It's developing way too rapidly, in my opinion. And we need to adapt ourselves to it as people and as a society as fast as this is adapting. We need to be able to see through AI, but that's becoming harder and harder. So we need to adapt our AI scanning technology to make sure. Right. And then we need to label it as much as we can, because this is going to ruin people's lives if it adapts way faster than we can adapt to it.
Right.
And who knows what kind of damage this could do to people. We don't even know. We haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg yet. This is absolute insanity. But if we could adapt faster than AI, then in all means we can use it to, provide for ourselves too.
Right.
We could either use it, or we could just let it grow as much as it wants, and it could eventually use us.
Right. And then I guess, do you have any final thoughts left on AI within the music industry?
AI within the music industry?
I guess just summarize that
yes.
concept.
Just remember, AI is not art. AI is just, even if it's producing sounds, it's not made from someone's soul. Someone didn't feel that. We created AI through numbers and letters, right? We program AI. AI is a program. It's an algorithm. It's not soul. You're never going to relate to AI as much as it tries to mimic human behavior. So when you listen to something AI generated, I think most people can feel that it's AI generated, and it will never go beyond that point. As much as it tries to, it will never be a real person's emotions. So as far as worries about our artists going to be replaced, I'm not very worried. Maybe in like sounds, but that's just sound effects. Real music is art. It's soul. It's the way a painting touches you, but it touches you through your ears. It's artwork, that can't be replaced.
Well, thank you, Tyler, for your time. And
thank you, Ben.
We'll be moving on to our next segment, which will be covering law. We are now entering our last segment for this podcast. So far, you have heard me talk as a narrator for the other sections. However, for this section, I'll also be serving the role as the guest star. So let's learn a little bit more about me. Well, my name is Benjamin Fleming. I'm currently an undergraduate student at Seaver College, and I'm currently a freshman at Pepperdine University. I have aspirations of becoming a lawyer. I currently major in political science, and I'm on track to become a pre-law student. In addition to this, I've done mock trial for the last 4 years, and I've served as a lawyer's legal assistant for Clark Hill Law Firm during the 2024 year. Now that we know more about myself, let's dive into this segment. First, I want to address some loose ends we left off during the entertainment segment, particularly at the Supreme Court case Campbell versus A Cuffed Rose from 1994. Although we mentioned earlier that users are given protective rights of new works generated from AI, the Supreme Court has ruled that although those individuals are protected, they can still be persecuted if their use of AI was done so in a malicious intent, which is punishable under defamation laws. Now that we've cleared that up, why do some lawyers use AI within their work? Well, according to the American Bar Association, particularly from their research article, 7 Ways Artificial Intelligence Can Benefit Your Law Firm, which was published in September of 2017, they often cite legal research as, quote, AI can analyze large amounts of data, including case law and statutes, to help lawyers find relevant information. This can help lawyers identify precedents and arguments and find new angles to support their arguments, close quote. It's also used for document review, as lawyers tend to use AI to help review large amounts of information in order to find definitions, missing terms, or general information that may have been overlooked by a human. Now, AI is also used for drafting. However, you have to be very careful when using AI for drafting, which is clearly evident in AP News' report from 2023. In an article published by them on June 22, 2023, a lawyer was fined $5,000 for using AI to create their argument that they would later submit to a judge. This particular news report is important as it points to hallucinations within the AI system. These AI hallucinations occur when it pulls out information from a source that doesn't exist. Particularly in this case, an AI hallucination was developed as the AI cited a case precedent that did not exist. In other words, the case that it was referring to never actually occurred. It was a figment of the AI's imagination. A report published by the American Bar Association in 2024, Legal Innovations and AI, Risks and Opportunity, also brings up the problem of transparency, as it asserts that in order for the AI to be most effective, it needs for as much of the recent case to be inputted into the system to compare it to case precedent. This brings up the issue of lawyer-client confidentiality, as this information needs to be plugged into an AI system in order for the AI to create an argument. While some law firms have decided to allow AI to stand, other law firms have taken it down. Within the research I have conducted, a majority of the law firms that still use AI do so primarily to create research reports or background data. They do not use it to create arguments, precedents, or final drafts, as the AI has been deemed unreliable. Now, as we wrap up this section, and ultimately this podcast, I want to say thank you to everyone who has tuned in and taken part in this podcast. I want to give a special thanks to Chad Duffy, his dog Clover, Andrew Palmer, Bobby and Robert Caridi, as well as their dog Bugsy, and Tyler Simpson for offering their time and support for this podcast. All facts and figures mentioned during this podcast have been researched for credibility. The reports have been cited alongside these facts and figures in quotes aforementioned. All the sources given during this podcast have either come from peer-reviewed research reports, official government reports, or from news reporting agencies with a long history of reporting accurate and non-biased news reports. The information contained within this podcast is up to date as of November 30th, 2024. For questions or more information, please contact us at benjamin.fleming@pepperdine.edu. I, Benjamin Fleming, have had the pleasure to be your host and can't wait for you to join us for our next episode. I'm Benjamin Fleming, and I'm signing off.